EFL TV, proudly brought to you by Ferntree Gully Motor Group.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the EFL Agenda. My name is Dyson Baker and joining me this afternoon, Braden.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dyson. Another good week in the EFL. Looking forward to discussing it.
Yeah, look, some big results and none bigger at the moment than the Montrose Football Club. They've 3-0 and sitting up towards the top of the ladder and have really shown a bit in the first three rounds. Have they impressed you?
Yeah, look, they really have, Dyson. I mean, they've come up from Division 2. I mean, there's always that question of a side coming out whether they're going to be able to impress. Roval did early on last year, I think, and Montrose again. A big win over a Noble Park to start the season, and then I think the Lilydale one, that's the one that stands out. We know Lilydale aren't going particularly well, but a 100-point win in Division 1 is always a good win, especially against a side that's been in Division 1 for so long. And I think, look, the game this week against Norwood, that's the big test. I mean, as I said, they've beaten Noble, but against Norwood, they're the team that we think is really going to test a ball in this year. So I think even if they don't win, if they can really put the pressure on Norwood, then they're going to look good for the rest of the season.
We're definitely going to know where they're at come 5 p.m. Saturday afternoon. Another side, we definitely know where they're at. You mentioned them just before as a Baldwin Football Club, led up forward by Luke Barker, who managed a lazy 13 goals in a solid win by the Baldwin Football Club over Scoresby. Upwards of 200 points, a quality effort by Baldwin to really stamp their authority on Division 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think their authority's been there for a while now, and they just continue to impress and say, we're not going anywhere. Luke Barker kicks 13 and still doesn't get best on, so that just shows how well they're going at the moment as a team. Look, I mean, you can't take much out of it. Scoresby, it's just the way their season's going to be this year, but yeah, Baldwin doing exactly what they need to do, and you've got to love watching Baldwin when they come out and put performances like that on.
We always speak about the big three. Baldwin's one of those. Noble Park have been for the last couple of years. Norwood's starting to take over their reign, but Vermont are another side who haven't really shown too much in season 2014, but a solid... A come from behind victory on Saturday to get over the top of East Ringwood is probably a good start for them.
Yeah, I mean, they really needed it. They did this last year as well. They were a little bit slow to start as we got on them early, a bit of pressure, and they came out and really fired again towards the mid part of the season. Look, that was an important win over East Ringwood. We know East Ringwood aren't going particularly well, but at the same time, you've got to find a win, especially when you're zipping 2 to start the season, and they did. They were down at three-quarter time, but they found a way to win, and that's what good sides do. And I think now we'll just start to see them lift a bit of momentum, a bit of tempo, and they'll start to get into the Vermont that we know pretty well. Whether they're going to be in the big three this year or they're going to test the Norwoods and Baldwin, that's what we're waiting to find.
The perfect place to be on Saturday afternoon would have been Shark Park, Braden. Saw the scores come through. 11-goal first term from Bayswater, and we thought they were home and hosed. And then all of a sudden, Doncaster just came from the clouds in what would have been an absolute epic at its Trams Reserve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then Doncaster come out in the second term, even back up, and with a three-quarter time, it's 100 points each. So you go into that final term, and I think Doncaster probably would have had the confidence knowing how well they've been playing at the moment. And Bayswater, they play with nothing to lose. Wayne McInerney kicks 6 goals. Galache with 5, some really impressive players there. And I think the thing that stands out there, Bayswater again, they've got the good player like McInerney. They just don't have someone else there. I mean, I think you could get one of the Galvins kicked out 4 or 5 as well. So they've got, it's just that consistency that they need. But I don't want to take any away from them because that's a really good performance against a side that is playing really well and it's going to do some damage in Div 2 this year.
It's funny how a week can change a lot in football. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about how Bayswater and Waverley were both placed in Division 2, both the winless sides in Division 2, still winless, but it seems to me that Bayswater showed a fair bit than Waverley did over the weekend.
Yeah, I think basing on last year's result where Waverley really tested Moorbark and just went down late in the final quarter, I think we may have thought there was a similar result coming in, and Waverley just didn't produce that. They couldn't find a way to put the pressure on Moorbark, whereas Bayswater has shown patches this year, and I think with some young players there, they've got the chance. What about for you, Waverley? Where are they headed at the moment?
Look, I think it's... I went to the game on Friday night and there was just no run from the Waverley Blues. I mean, Moorbark weren't all that flash themselves. I mean, it was under lights, a bit damp and everything like that, but both sides really struggled to get any sort of run on. It was only really in the last quarter that Moorbark really asserted their authority late and made the margin what it was, but it was a pretty scrappy game of football. So, I mean, I don't even think Moorbark would have been overly impressed, even though they got the win. A lot of big results in Division 3 this week, Braden, and none bigger than a kick just before the siren from the Boronia Football Club at home to get over the line against Templestowe in what was an absolutely cracking game.
Yeah, I tell you what, those two sides, they seem to start the season pretty well, and I think maybe for Boronia that's a really important win. A couple of close losses last year, and just one early to get over the line against Templestowe, who always, or in the last couple of years certainly, have started really well. And again, they're up and about. It's just going to be interesting to see for me, Tempe, after about mid-season, where they go from here. But in terms of Boronia, really good start. We keep talking to them about them being the perennial bridesmaid, always getting there to the finals and just not getting the job done. Next couple of weeks, I think, are going to be really important to see where they go from here as to whether they're going to go the next step.
You look right through all the games in Division 3 and there's nothing that you can sort of go past as what is a bad game. Boronia come up against Whitehorse in probably a real test for both sides, particularly Whitehorse, who have shown a bit in the first 3 weeks, went down to South Belgrave in a pretty tight contest at South Belgrave, and now they've got a real test in Boronia, who are one of those sides that are really going to be contending at the top half.
Got to be the best story of Division 3, I think, at the moment, and close there with the league, other than maybe Park Orchards in Division 4, who will come to, but really, they've just found a way this year, and they've just been impressive. Whitehorse, as you said, they lost, but it's a good loss, as if you can have one. And they just go into this week with a couple of good chances, and I'm just liking the way they're going about it at the moment. You've got to love their footy, and hey, if they're winning and they're away from the bottom of the ladder, that's what we want to see.
Speaking of another side who's away from the bottom of the ladder, they're at the flip side at the top. The Mitcham Tigers still undefeated in season 2014, and they've got a massive test coming up this week against Templestowe out at Templestowe Reserve.
Yeah, in the radio game, it's going to be a really exciting game. I can't wait to go and have a look at it. Tempe match up really well, as I said. They start seasons pretty well. It's just going to be interesting to see how they go here. And Mitcham, at the start of the season, I believe their season launch, my word is that Scott Homewood came out and said, we want to go through this season undefeated. And
big call.
It is a big call. They've probably got the list to do it. I mean, you look at it, you got the Hogels, Pim, Pignataro, they're all big players and big game players. So I think they've got the personnel, whether they've got the mental fortitude and that ability come finals time. It's going to be interesting to see whether they can get through the season, but even if they don't, come that finals time. And this is the sort of game as well, against Templestowe, at Templestowe, a team that always starts the season well, they're going to need to perform and they're going to need to bring their best. So it's a game that's really set up well to have a good call at.
We'll be covering that one right across the afternoon on 98.1 Radio Eastern on AFL Game Day from 1 o'clock. That one is going to be a true epic. Division 4 time now, Braden, and there's 2 sides still remaining at the top of the table undefeated. And I tell you what, Forest Hill have really shown a bit in the first 3 rounds. Park Orchards, though, are the story that I want to talk about. A couple of close wins, something that they couldn't do in season 2013, and that's really holding them in good stead.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know at the start of the season. Look, I wouldn't have thought they would have been undefeated after 3 games, but they've certainly gone through and played some good football. Last 2 games under 10 points, as you said. Whether they would have done it in the past, I think they would have struggled. So some really good signs there. They're looking really strong at the moment, so it's good to see. Look, this weekend it's going to be interesting to see how they go. Surrey Park, I mean, there's a side that will come to in a second that aren't going too well.
Do the Demons haunt them? I mean, the last time that Surrey Park travelled out to Park Orchards was the game that broke the duck, and there's been a fair bit mentioned about it at the Park Orchards Football Club. Is that something that's going to haunt them a little bit come Saturday afternoon?
No, I think Park Orchards are a good enough side now that they're gonna win. It's not necessarily going to be a final way to win. They've got probably a list that's pretty similar, but a bit better than the Surrey Park list that probably just hasn't come on as much as they would like. They're the team that have yet to win a game. They're a bit uncompetitive, and in the last 2 games, they've only kicked 13 goals in those 2 games. Look, it was wet last weekend, in the early part of the game. But still, you've got sides like Warrandyte who've kicked over 100 points on a wet day, so that's not really an excuse. Park Orchards, I think, are probably too strong in that game. And just going back to the other undefeated side that you mentioned, Forest Hill, they've really come on from last season, haven't they? I mean, they've taken the momentum from that surprise grand final berth, and they've really rolled with it.
Yeah, well, look, you go back to, I think it's round 14 or round 15. They've only lost 1 game, and that was the grand final you mentioned. They're flying along. They had a massive burst of form towards the end of season 2013. They've continued that this year, and at this stage, they're looking unbeatable.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the next couple of weeks. But again, I mean, we keep saying that because it's such a key part of the season now. The sides have had that little break over Easter, played the 3 games now, and this is where you should be in form. You should be fit. You should be right to go. So the next couple of weeks will prove crucial across all the leagues, and just determining where those teams are going to sit.
Well, that about wraps up a pretty comprehensive agenda, Braden. We've been through all 4 divisions and some key games going on right across the Eastern Football League.
Yeah, it's another interesting week just to see how the teams go, and I think after 4 weeks we'll start to understand where teams are settling into in their divisions, and we'll be able to give you a bit more of a wrap going into the next couple of weeks.
Definitely. Make sure you tune into EFL Game Day on Saturday afternoon from Templestowe Reserve. It's Templestowe versus Mitcham in what should be an absolutely cracking clash. 98.1 FM, 1 till 6 on Saturday. Akira EFL Sunday on Sunday morning from 10 till 12. And make sure you stay tuned to www.efl.org.au. But for now, that's all. Thanks for watching.